You don't feel it with your mind. You feel it in your gut. Something is off. The connection looks good on paper. The words are poetic, flattering, seductive. He says the right things. He stares deeply into your eyes. He compliments your strength, your softness, your mystery. But still, something doesn't click. And if you slow down for a moment, if you step out of the dream, the truth becomes undeniable. Something feels missing. This is the first sign, and it's the most powerful one. Your own intuition. The quiet, steady voice inside that doesn't argue or explain, but whispers, "This isn't real." And yet, most of us learn to override that voice. We silence it with logic, with hope, with rationalizations. We tell ourselves he's busy. He's been hurt before. He just needs time. But while we're making excuses, the player is building a stage. And you're stepping into the role he needs you to play. The mirage of sincerity. The danger of a player isn't that he's obviously cruel. It's that he's confusing. He gives just enough to keep you hopeful. Just enough to stay relevant in your heart. But never enough to truly commit, grow, or build. One moment he's close, the next he's gone. He tells you he cares, but somehow you're always the one initiating, waiting, wondering. And this confusion is part of the design. Players aren't necessarily bad people, but they are deeply invested in control. The kind of control that keeps you emotionally dependent, guessing, off balance. And the most effective tool they use? Ambiguity. When a man wants to build something real, you'll know. Not because he says it, but because his actions are consistent, grounded and reliable. Real connection doesn't keep you anxious. It doesn't require constant decoding. It feels safe, simple, and open. If you're spending most of your time wondering what he thinks, how he feels, whether you're imagining things, that's not chemistry. That's emotional manipulation. Beautiful words, empty promises. Here's a harsh truth. Words are cheap, and players are fluent in the language of seduction. They say exactly what you need to hear, not because they feel it, but because they know it keeps you tied. They're good at telling you you're different, special, unforgettable. But when it comes to showing up, when you're sick, scared, hurt, or simply in need of consistency, they vanish. Or worse, they turn cold, dismissive, indifferent. You may think, but he said he loved me. He said he saw a future. He told me I was the only one who gets him. Yes, he did. And maybe in that moment, he even believed it. But love isn't a moment. It's a pattern of care. And the truth always shows up in behavior, not declarations. A man who disappears for 3 days without explanation is not confused. He's prioritizing something or someone else. A man who tells you he's not ready for a serious relationship but keeps acting like you're his partner is not figuring it out. He's benefiting from your confusion. These are not mixed signals. These are clear signs of a man who enjoys emotional access to you without the responsibility. So the first rule is this: don't trust words. Trust actions. You're not imagining it. One of the hardest parts of dealing with a player is how they make you doubt yourself. Their behavior is inconsistent, but when you confront them, they make you feel like the problem. You're too sensitive. You're overthinking. You're putting pressure on them. Suddenly you're apologizing for reacting to their bad behavior. This tactic is subtle and dangerous. It's designed to make you question your own instincts. And the more you doubt yourself, the more power they gain. If you constantly feel uncertain, unsteady, or like you're the only one trying, believe that feeling. Players don't want equality. They want emotional leverage. They keep you waiting, not because they need time, but because they like it when you wait. It means they still have your heart, your attention, your energy. To outsmart a player, you have to start from one unshakable truth. You're not stupid. You already see what's going on. You've just been trained, perhaps by life, by society, by past wounds, to ignore what you see and feel. But today that changes. The power of no more waiting. The real weapon a player uses against you is time. Not your time, his timing. He disappears and reappears. He keeps things undefined. He gives crumbs and waits to see if you'll stay hungry. And if you do, he knows he still has control. This is where your first act of strength begins. Stop waiting. Stop waiting for clarity. Stop waiting for him to change. Stop waiting for him to finally act right. Because deep down, if he wanted to, he would have already. When you stop waiting, you stop giving him power. You stop suspending your life in hopes of something that was never promised to begin with. You start living again, fully, clearly, intentionally. The spell breaks, the fog lifts, and you realize something profound. You never needed him to be better. You needed to believe you deserved better. Remove the fantasy filter. The relationship you think you're in isn't the one you're actually in. That's the hardest pill to swallow. Most of the time, you're not holding on to a person. You're holding on to the idea of who they could be, the imagined future, the potential, the almost. He's almost ready. He almost loves you the way you love him. He almost treats you right. But almost is just another way to say not enough. Players rely on your imagination. They leave gaps, and you fill them with dreams. They show flashes of affection, and you turn them into signs of growth. They say something sweet once, and you build a castle of hope on that one sentence. It's time to pull the curtain back. Ask yourself, if he never changed, would I still choose him? Am I truly happy, or just addicted to the hope of what could be? Do I feel respected or just tolerated? The answers are hard, but they're clear. Step 1. Clarity over hope. You can't outsmart someone who plays with your heart by trying to fix him. You outsmart him by no longer participating in the illusion. That starts with brutal clarity. No sugarcoating, no romanticizing. Just truth. Watch what he does, not what he says. Don't justify red flags, name them. Don't assume intentions. Observe impact. This is the beginning of reclaiming your power. You've already survived the confusion. Now it's time to rise out of it, because what comes next is not about revenge. It's not about getting even. It's about getting clear, getting calm, and getting back to yourself. You've already taken the first step. You're seeing the game for what it is. Next, how to stop playing his game and start living your life on your own terms. You've begun to see it now. The patterns, the manipulation, the silence that isn't peace but control. You've started looking at actions over words, removing fantasy from fact, and maybe something inside you has already shifted. That quiet internal strength that says, no more. But this isn't just about understanding the game. It's about stepping out of it. The truth is, players don't need your love. They need your attention. They feed off your reactions, your confusion, your longing. They thrive on uncertainty because it keeps you emotionally anchored to them. Even if you're angry, even if you're confronting them, as long as you're engaged, they're still winning. To truly regain control, you need to stop playing any role in their story, not the lover, not the rescuer, not even the opponent. That starts with the second core strategy. Don't let yourself be frozen. There's a very specific form of emotional manipulation that doesn't come with yelling or overt cruelty. It's subtle, polished, quiet, and it's this. He stays close enough not to lose you, but far enough never to fully commit. He doesn't leave, but he also doesn't come closer. He's cold for days, then suddenly warm again. He ignores your message, then sends a sweet text 2 days later. He disappears emotionally, then reappears with promises of something more. Someday. And all of this keeps you stuck in a state of emotional paralysis, but not truly loved, but not free to let go either. This is not romance. This is not a man who's just a little distant. This is control. It's about owning your heart without having to earn it. The trap of emotional inconsistency. Players keep women in emotional limbo for a reason. When you're unsure, you're more vulnerable. You keep second-guessing yourself. You wait. You suffer. You overanalyze. And that waiting is exactly what they want. Because when you're stuck in hope, you're not moving forward. And this is what it means to be frozen. You don't make plans for your life anymore. You wait for his. You don't fully invest in yourself. You keep space open just in case he returns. You don't open your heart to someone new because a part of you still believes he'll finally choose you. But here's the truth that breaks that illusion. His inconsistency is not a phase. It's a strategy. Staying in motion is your power. To outsmart a man who freezes you, you have to move. Not in reaction to him, but in service of yourself. That means, don't pause your life for his confusion. Don't cancel plans just because he finally showed up again. Don't rearrange your emotional world every time he texts. He's not the main event. He's a passing chapter. You don't owe your stillness to someone who won't offer you clarity. And when you stay in motion, something powerful happens. He loses control. He expects you to stay, to wait, to be ready when he decides to reappear. But when you don't, when you're out living your life, making choices, creating joy that has nothing to do with him, that's when the game breaks. Because now he's no longer the center of your world. He's not even a meaningful part of it. Refuse to be the one who explains. Now comes another key step. One of the most subtle traps players set is the illusion of dialogue. You're upset. You express it. You explain how you feel. He listens. He nods. He says he understands. He might even say he's sorry. You breathe easier. You think maybe this time something will change. And then, nothing does. Here's what's really happening. Your explanation is part of the loop. He doesn't change because he doesn't need to. As long as you keep explaining, he knows you haven't left. You're still trying, still hoping, still emotionally involved. And that means he can keep doing the same thing. Say the right words, offer a vague apology, and give just enough to pull you back in. But here's the twist. He already knows what he's doing. He knows when he's hurting you. He knows when he's being distant. He knows what you want. The issue isn't confusion, it's choice. You don't need another conversation. You need a decision. So instead of explaining one more time, stop. Don't send that long message. Don't try to make him understand. Don't ask him to finally see your worth. The truth is already clear. If he cared about your feelings, he would have acted differently a long time ago. Silence. The strategy that ends the game. Here's the most powerful move you can make. Go silent. Not as punishment. Not as a trick. But as a boundary. A declaration. I no longer feed what starves me. When you stop reacting, he loses his grip. When you stop responding, he starts scrambling. When you stop explaining, he realizes the show is over. Because you're no longer in the audience. This isn't passive aggression. It's clarity. It's choosing peace over chaos. Silence says, I understand everything I need to. And now, I'm done participating. And you may notice something strange when you go silent. He comes back. He texts. He calls. He gets worried. He wants to talk. He wants to clear things up. But this isn't love. It's testing. He's checking if he still has access to your attention, your heart, your vulnerability. This is when you need to be strongest. You've already stepped out of the game. Now don't go back just because he noticed your absence. Let him feel it. Let him sit with the silence he created. Because if you break that silence too soon, you'll end up exactly where you were before. Hopeful, waiting, confused. You are not a puzzle to be solved. One of the biggest lies women internalize is that if they just figure out the right way to be patient enough, loving enough, low maintenance enough, the man will finally change. This idea is exhausting, and it's false. You are not a puzzle to be solved. You're not a project to be completed. You don't need to earn the love of someone who keeps you on an emotional roller coaster. The moment you stop trying to explain yourself and start honoring yourself, everything changes. And no, this doesn't mean you become cold or closed. It means you become selective. You stop offering your softness to someone who hasn't shown they can handle it with care. The power of leaving the game without noise. You don't need drama. You don't need a final speech. You don't need to slam the door or send a long goodbye text. Sometimes the most powerful ending is a quiet exit. No revenge, no bitterness, just a calm decision. This is not what I want. This is not what I deserve. So I'm done. And in that silence, in that clarity, you begin to rebuild something much more important than a relationship with him. You rebuild the relationship with yourself. This is not weakness. This is strength. This is not giving up. This is rising up. You are no longer a pawn in his game. You're not even on the board anymore. You're standing above it, watching clearly, living freely, feeling whole. By now, you've seen the pattern. You've stopped explaining. You've gone quiet. You've started to recenter your life around yourself instead of waiting for a man who thrives on keeping you in confusion. But this is where many women feel something dangerous. A void. You've removed the drama, the chase, the uncertainty. And what's left? This is the moment players count on. That after the silence, you'll come back. Not because you want him, but because the absence feels worse than the chaos. Because silence is scary when you're used to instability. Because peace can feel like emptiness when you've been addicted to emotional highs and lows. So this is where the true shift begins. Not just in removing the player, but in flipping the script completely. This part is no longer about him at all. This part is about you stepping into the version of yourself who doesn't need to play, perform, or prove. And the flip begins with one of the most underestimated weapons. 5. Ask uncomfortable questions. Players hate clarity. They live in the fog, in vagueness, in half-truths, in, let's see where this goes. And the moment you start demanding clarity, the game begins to collapse. So flip the power dynamic by becoming direct, not emotional, not angry, clear. Ask, what do you want from this relationship? Are you sleeping with anyone else? Why do you keep disappearing and returning? Are you looking for something real, or just someone to keep you entertained? You're not asking because you believe he'll tell the truth. You're asking to observe his reaction. Does he get defensive? Dodge? Laugh it off? Blame you? Say you're too intense? All of these reactions reveal something. He doesn't want you to see clearly. Because once you have the truth, or the absence of it, you can walk away. And that's his biggest fear. Clarity exposes the game. So don't be afraid to ask. The goal isn't a perfect answer. The goal is to remind yourself that you're not afraid of the truth anymore. 6. Remove almost from your vocabulary. Here's a hard truth. Almost is emotional poison. He almost treats me right. We almost had something special. He's almost ready for a relationship. We're almost a couple. Every time you say almost, what you're really doing is justifying settling for less. And players love women who live in the almost because it means they never have to do more than the minimum. So here's your new rule. Almost doesn't count. Not in love. Not in effort. Not in commitment. Either he shows up or he doesn't. Either you're his priority or you're not. Either he invests in you or he's wasting your time. No more living in potential. Potential is future-focused. Power is present-focused. Look at what he's giving now, not what he promises someday. Ask yourself, if he never changed, if this is the best he can offer, would I choose this life with him forever? If the answer is no, don't wait. Don't wait for his healing. Don't wait for his growth. Don't wait for him to realize your worth. You are not an unpaid emotional therapist. You're not a test run for his development. You're a woman with value right now, not someday. 7. Stop trying to earn love. This is the root of it all. The deep reason why you stay, why you explain, why you keep giving even when you're empty. You believe that if you're good enough, patient enough, wise enough, he will finally choose you. You may not say it out loud, but deep down it lives in you. The belief that love has to be earned, that you have to prove you're worth staying for, that if you don't complain, if you just understand him enough, he'll see how valuable you are and change. But here's the radical truth. Love is not earned. Love is given. Freely, openly, willingly. If you have to fight for it, it's not love. It's approval seeking. It's emotional survival. It's an old story that says, I must work to be wanted. And that story didn't start with this man. It started years ago. Maybe from a parent, a past betrayal, a world that taught you your value depends on how much you can give. But you're not a little girl anymore trying to prove she's lovable. You're a woman. You're allowed to walk away from anything that makes you feel small, invisible, or unworthy. Not because it's broken, but because you're no longer available for relationships that cost your dignity. Players expect you to stay. They expect you to endure. They expect you to bend so far backward that you forget how to stand tall. So flip the script. Leave, not in anger, but in clarity. Leave, not because he finally broke you, but because you finally saw yourself clearly. What happens after the flip? Here's what happens when you stop engaging in the game. He might come back. He might make new promises. He might suddenly see your value. But understand this, you don't need to hear it anymore. His validation no longer holds the same weight, because you've already validated yourself. You don't need to be chosen by someone who had every chance to choose you and didn't. You've stopped needing the performance. You've stopped playing the role. You've become the one holding the pen, writing your own story, instead of being cast in someone else's emotional theater. You've reclaimed your power. Let's be honest, outsmarting a man who plays with your heart isn't about being more clever than him. It's about becoming so rooted in your worth that his games no longer reach you. You don't need tricks. You don't need revenge. You don't need to match his coldness. You just need to exit the cycle. Stop explaining. Stop waiting. Stop fantasizing. Stop proving. Stop playing. And when you stop, the game collapses. Not because you beat him, but because you're no longer playing. You're living, fully, clearly, peacefully. The moment you flip the script, you stop being a character in his story and become the author of your own. You've stepped away from the game. You've seen the pattern, called it out, and made the quiet but powerful decision to leave. But now comes the part most people skip, the inner rebuilding. Because freedom doesn't come just from walking away. It comes from staying away without looking back. The player may be gone, but the echoes of the experience, the emotional habits, the self-doubt, and the old beliefs still linger. And if you don't deal with those, you risk walking into the same dynamic all over again, just wearing a different face. This part isn't about him anymore. It's about you, your self-trust, your clarity, your ability to spot the red flags before they take root, and, more importantly, your ability to honor them without betraying yourself. So how do you make that strength permanent? 1. Acknowledge every emotion without acting on it. Walking away doesn't make the pain disappear overnight. In fact, at first it might make it louder. You'll feel everything: grief, anger, regret, confusion, loneliness. And the most dangerous trap here is believing these emotions mean you made the wrong decision. They don't. They mean you're human. That your feelings were real. That your love was genuine, even if his intentions weren't. So the key here is not to silence your emotions or rush through them. It's to sit with them, without needing to fix or explain them. Try this. When a wave hits, say to yourself, right now I feel but, and that's okay. I don't need to act on it. I just need to acknowledge it. Because your feelings don't make you weak. They make you honest. And healing begins when you give those feelings space to breathe without letting them drive your next move. 2. Take small, intentional steps every day. You don't have to rebuild your entire emotional world overnight. Start small. Say no to things that drain you. Reconnect with people who make you feel safe. Take yourself out. Remind yourself you're good company. Unfollow people or accounts that pull you back into comparison or fantasy. Every small step is a vote for your self-respect. Don't focus on being unshakable or fearless. Focus on being committed. Committed to no longer betraying yourself for anyone else's comfort. Remember, you don't rise in one leap. You rise in quiet, consistent steps. 3. Start a pattern journal. One of the most transformative tools after walking away from a manipulator is this: journaling your reactions. Why? 'Cause the game you just escaped isn't random. It follows patterns. And if you don't see those patterns, you'll repeat them. Start writing down moments when you felt ignored, anxious, or like you had to prove yourself. You made excuses for someone's poor behavior. You felt like you couldn't speak your truth without consequences. Over time, you'll begin to see what kinds of behaviors trigger you, and why. And once you're aware of those triggers, you can start to respond differently. Awareness turns chaos into clarity. 4. Stop measuring strength by how much you can endure. This is a hard truth, especially for women who've been conditioned to be strong. But strength is not measured by how much pain you can take, or how long you can wait, or how forgiving you are to someone who keeps failing you. Real strength is measured by how quickly you walk away when your boundaries are violated. It's in how calmly you say, "This isn't working for me," and leave. You don't owe anyone endless second chances, especially when they've shown you who they are the first 10 times. So stop proving your loyalty to people who only test it. Let your new definition of strength be, "I choose myself even when it's hard." 5. Reclaim your body's wisdom. Your body knew before your mind did. Every time he disappeared, you felt it in your chest. Every time he lied, your stomach tightened. Every time you stayed when you knew you shouldn't, you felt drained afterward. Start listening to those signals. If someone makes you feel unsafe, unsettled, small, believe that feeling. If your body relaxes around someone, that's information too. Your body doesn't lie. The mind can be fooled by charm, logic, and hope, but the body feels the truth. So start checking in regularly. When I'm with this person, do I feel calm or tense, open or guarded, energized or anxious? This simple habit builds self-trust like nothing else. 6. Fill the emotional gap with real support. You may have disconnected from a toxic emotional bond, but emotional habits don't vanish in a day. If you don't fill that space, your nervous system will try to recreate it. By texting him, checking his social media, or attracting a new player with the same traits. So consciously fill the gap. Talk to someone who doesn't want anything from you. A friend, a coach, a therapist. Spend time around stable people, even if it feels boring at first. Do things that make you feel competent, clear, creative, even for 10 minutes a day. It's not about distraction. It's about retraining your brain to recognize stability as normal, not chaos. 7. Celebrate every small victory. Most of the work here happens in the background. The day you don't text him when you miss him. The moment you say no instead of shrinking. The night you sleep peacefully, knowing you didn't settle. Celebrate those moments. Don't wait for a big milestone. Let your nervous system feel what it's like to succeed. This rewires your emotional foundation and makes it easier to keep choosing peace. Again and again. What happens next? A life without the game. Once you've done this inner work, something incredible happens. You no longer attract the same dynamic. Why? Because players can sense when a woman is still willing to be played. They gravitate toward emotional openings, insecurity, need for approval, fear of loneliness. But when those holes are filled, when you've done the work, their charm no longer sticks. You stop being drawn to drama. You recognize red flags before you get attached. You stop giving away your energy in exchange for crumbs. You stop proving, performing, and fixing. You simply exist, grounded, strong, and whole. And in that state you become unplayable. Because the game, it can't reach someone who no longer needs it. You've learned the signs. You've broken the patterns. You've silenced the noise and started coming home to yourself. Now, the final step isn't about outsmarting a player. It's about realizing you don't need to play at all. Because freedom isn't just walking away from someone who manipulates your heart. It's walking away from the belief that your heart was ever something to be played with in the first place. It's choosing peace over patterns, presence over performance, and self-respect over emotional dependency. This last chapter is about what comes after the storm. Not just surviving, but living fully and freely. With a heart that beats clearly, not anxiously. Here's how you move into that version of yourself. The one who doesn't get played, not because she's cold or guarded, but because she's clear. 1. Understand you are not broken. You were manipulated. When you come out of a dynamic with a player, it's common to feel ashamed, foolish, or even embarrassed. You might think, how did I not see it sooner? Why did I stay so long? What does this say about me? But here's the truth. You weren't stupid. You weren't weak. You were simply emotionally honest, and you believed someone else was too. That's not a flaw. That's beautiful. The problem isn't that you were too open. It's that you weren't taught how to protect your openness. Players are good at spotting your light. And if no one taught you how to guard it, of course you were vulnerable to someone who wanted to dim it for their own gain. So stop blaming yourself for being fooled. Start celebrating the fact that you've now learned. You are not broken. You are no longer blind. And that changes everything. 2. Redefine what love looks like. Part of true freedom is unlearning the version of love you thought you had to settle for. Love is not disappearing and returning. Love is not confusion, tension, or anxiety. Love is not a reward you get when you're good enough. Love, real love, is safe, clear, and present. It doesn't pull away when you're vulnerable. It doesn't punish you for needing connection. It doesn't turn your feelings into problems. So if what you had with him was mostly pain and guessing, it wasn't love. Let that idea die. Because the longer you chase a broken definition of love, the longer you stay available for people who break you. Your new definition begins with this question. Does this connection feel safe to my nervous system? If the answer is no, that's all you need to know. 3. Stop performing, start belonging. One of the most painful parts of being involved with a player is how often you feel like you're performing, trying to be desirable, calm, not too emotional, the perfect mix of sexy and chill, understanding but not too available. And at some point, you start to forget who you are when you're not trying to impress someone. Here's what real connection requires. 0 performance. Full presence. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be hard to get. You don't have to hide your needs. You just have to be honest and willing to walk away from anything that doesn't honor your honesty. Belonging isn't about fitting into someone else's idea of lovable. It's about standing in your truth and saying, this is me. If it's not enough for you, then you're not the right fit for me. No performance. No scripts. Just reality and the courage to own it. 4. Let silence become your superpower. Freedom from games means no longer reacting emotionally to manipulation, because you no longer need that person's attention to validate your worth. Silence now isn't passive. It's intentional. It says, I don't need to correct your version of the story. I don't need closure from you to close this chapter. I don't need to convince anyone of my value. When you're truly free, silence becomes a message all its own. I understand everything I need to, and now I'm choosing myself. That kind of silence scares manipulators, because it shows you've stepped out of the emotional arena and into your own authority. Let it be loud. 5. Create a life so full no one can hijack it. This is the final move, and it's the most powerful. Build a life that's so full of purpose, beauty, joy, and alignment that someone's inability to love you well doesn't shake you anymore. You don't need a man to fix your loneliness. You need a life that fulfills you, so that when love arrives, it's a compliment, not a crutch. Start small. Reclaim your routines. Create art, write, build, grow. Spend time with people who bring peace. Travel, learn, move your body. Take care of your space. Fill your life with what lights you up, so that next time someone tries to enter it, your first question is, does this add to the peace I've created? Or threaten it? That's how you choose differently. That's how you stay free. 6. Remember, walking away was the win. Players don't expect you to leave. They expect you to cry, to chase, to beg, to collapse under the weight of false hope. They expect you to need them. But you didn't. You chose yourself. And that's the biggest plot twist of all. So even if you're still healing, even if you still miss him sometimes, let that be your anchor. I left because I deserved more, and I'm proud of that. That's not loss. That's liberation. 7. Make this a standard, not a one-time escape. The final truth? Freedom doesn't happen once. It happens every day you decide not to go back to what broke you, not to answer messages that cost your peace, not to entertain connections that feel hollow, not to explain your worth to someone who doesn't see it. You practice freedom until it becomes who you are. This isn't just about outsmarting one man. This is about stepping into a version of you that can never be manipulated again. Because now you see the games, you see the patterns, you see your own strength. You are no longer waiting, hoping, or shrinking. You are living. The end of the game, the beginning of you. So here we are, not at the end of a relationship, but at the beginning of a life, where your heart is no longer available for games, where your worth is not tied to someone's attention, where your emotions are not currency to be traded for affection. You don't need to be harder. You don't need to be colder. You just need to stay clear. Clear on what love really is. Clear on who you are. Clear on what you'll no longer tolerate. You've outsmarted the player, not by beating him at his game, but by refusing to play. And in doing so, you've become something far more powerful than clever. You've become free. If this spoke to your soul, don't stop here. Subscribe now and get powerful, no-fluff guidance like this daily. Because you're done with the games. You're done with emotional breadcrumbs. And you're ready to rebuild a life where your peace, your clarity, and your self-worth come first. Weekly content to help you. Spot red flags before they attach. Strengthen your emotional boundaries. Choose you without guilt or fear. Heal, rise, and never fall for the same pattern again. This isn't just inspiration. It's transformation, one truth at a time. Subscribe now. Your freedom isn't a moment. It's a lifestyle. And this is where it begins.